Hello everyone, this is the ABC of Drawing, and I'm your host, Andrei Markov. We're revisiting the topic of graphics today. In this video, I'll attempt to elaborate on the concepts of hatching and shading, showing the differences between academic hatching and photorealistic techniques. We'll see how it looks in practice using a simple drawing as an example. Then, we'll delve into more complex aspects. This lesson promises to be very informative, so make sure to watch till the end. Let's get started. Let me begin from a bit further away. When we create a black and white drawing, we mainly perform two actions. First, construction, the starting point for everything, and second, filling with tone, shading the contours we made during construction. The pencil has a small contact area with the paper, making shading inconvenient. Artists have devised methods for more efficient work. One of the most popular and advocated methods became hatching. This method of surface filling using lines or strokes has its own rules and principles. Hatching is done in layers to smooth and cover the gaps between strokes. The angle of lines is preferable for a neater and more beautiful appearance. It's also important to hatch according to the form of the object, partially replicating its curves. For larger areas of the drawing, layers of hatching should overlap. There are other methods of filling, for instance, solid line shading without lifting the hand, known as toning. It's a more familiar and softer method, but has its downsides, such as difficulty in layer integration. There are controversial methods too, including smudging, referred to differently as shading or blending. Some consider it necessary, while others don't. It all depends on the technique and materials used. When discussing the graphite pencil, there are two opposing poles: classical techniques, or the academic style, and photorealistic approaches. Academic drawings do not incorporate smudging. The primary goal of an artist is to express volume using various techniques, including vivid, sharply defined hatching resembling a mesh. Smudging isn't employed to avoid blurring these sharp, transparent strokes. With an academic style, hatching is the primary method for tonal work. Stippling might be used for specific tasks like darkening, but it's not frequent. Photorealism demands maximum tonal smoothness to create a photographic feel. Here, not only hatching, but also stippling and blending can be used. However, blending has its complexities, such as the appearance of spots and smudges if overdone. When using other graphic materials like pastels or charcoal, the rules can change. If you want more details, check out specific videos on our channel covering these topics. Now let's move on to the practical aspect. I'll show you, using a simple drawing as an example, how to execute academic hatching and photorealistic techniques. We'll see the differences in practice. Today, I'll be drawing an egg, a simple round form that's more interesting than a sphere. I'll also draw the shadow on the surface and demonstrate how it can be treated with hatchings. I'll outline the contour first. There's no particular difficulty here. The main thing is to avoid making it too bold. The first drawing will follow the academic style, so apologies in advance for any shortcomings. For the classical technique, you'll need hard pencils. My primary one is 2B, and I'll use a green 5B for the contour. Spherical shapes can be hatched in various ways, and here I'm using scheme number 2. There are predefined hatching schemes for other shapes, and I'll demonstrate those as well. I'll begin hatching with very light strokes in the darkest areas, which are the shadows. Our light source is on the left, so we'll have a shadow on the right. For a better understanding of the light and shadow dynamics, there'll be a photo of the finished drawing in the top left corner. Notice how every time I draw a line, the pencil lifts off the paper. My strokes are small. I'm not trying to cover the entire egg from edge to edge, but create patches with my strokes. I smoothly blend one patch into another. This helps us avoid visible seams when gradually building up light and changing layers. This represents the general scheme for filling in larger areas, as discussed in our theoretical lesson on hatching. Even though the egg isn't very large, it's easier for me to work with this size. This is the first layer of hatching, although there will be several. I'll continue using the same technique. I need to strengthen the shadow to make it larger, considering the halftone. The direction of the strokes remains roughly the same, but they'll slightly vary to accentuate the contours better. I work on the entire drawing at once, mindful of the cast shadow from the egg. I start hatching with horizontal lines. Cross-hatching might look better, but its application here might not be ideal, so I'll add it later. The shadow will be very dark under the egg, so the color here will be more intense, while towards the edges, it will fade, becoming less saturated. I think you've grasped the fundamental principles. I'll intensify the color and broaden the shadows. The number of layers should be moderate to maintain harmony in the drawing while keeping the strokes visible. Each new layer is slightly darker than the previous one to maintain the crispness of the strokes. Sharpness is key, so keep the pencil sharp and avoid smudging. These are my recommendations. Let's see how this turns out for me. Then I'll demonstrate how to create photorealistic shading and what sets it apart from the classical hatching technique. The first drawing is done. I'm moving on to the second. Here, it's almost the same, except for some nuances. The major difference is the softer pencil, 5B. I'm hatching using the same principles as before, but the lines are much softer. Using a softer pencil allows for this, and I'm applying less pressure while laying the strokes more densely. Though hatching remains the primary method here, unlike last time, we can employ smudging and blending. I just smudged with a dry, clean cloth. It's crucial to do this carefully and not too intensely to avoid creating patches. There are more layers here, and the difference in color between them is less noticeable. About blending, I sometimes use it in small areas where there's already a tone. This helps me avoid seams or patches. Hatching along the form is partly retained, even though the lines become less visible due to smudging. This allows us to retain hints of the hatching direction. This method enables the fusion of the advantages of photorealism and classical academic drawing. After completing this work, I compared both drawings. The academic one looks more voluminous and artistically detailed due to the prominently expressed grid. The second work is smoother and softer, but slightly loses in volume. Everyone has their own preferences. Now, moving on to more complex objects to demonstrate high-quality fillings. I've chosen a plaster head. It's a complex object that demands a high level of skill. I've created a time-lapse to demonstrate the process. If there's demand, I can create a detailed lesson for advanced users. In conclusion, I want to emphasize that your requests matter. I'll certainly fulfill the request for a review of drawing books. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button for you not to miss new videos. Now, I suggest watching the time-lapse till the end. Wishing everyone success and creative achievements.